Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. I'm not going to tell you my name or his name. You're just going to have to figure out who we are from context.
There will be more than enough context clues going around to tell you who we are. Also, I will be played by a voice assistant for the first few minutes of the stream to make up for the audio issues. Hope that's okay. It's going to be like a scavenger hunt.
My name sounds exactly like the Japanese word for ice.
And my name is George W. Bush in Arabic.
Really?
No.
I didn't think so. Mine is really like, I'm not.
Oh, it actually sounds like us. I thought we were doing a bit.
But yeah, we're kind of doing a bit. So what we're doing, and hopefully we'll get some people coming by and saying hi. Don't forget to just leave a comment. We want you, if you come on in, join the conversation. If you're watching this as a recorded stream, like we're gonna put this up on the channel regularly. We are going to just kind of go through the Legend of the Five Rings Fantasy Flight Edition book. Or Edge Edition, I guess. We've been playing this game now for 4 years, since it's come out, right? It says 2021. That's not right. This is an Edge Studio version, obviously.
2018. I don't know why I remember it coming out way back in 2016. Maybe that's when the EG sold the rights to Fantasy Flight. That was pretty far into 4th edition. I think they were all done with the 4th edition books, and they were talking about moving on.
We're heading on to 6 years in this game. And they've considerably slowed down the amount of books they've put out for it, especially for this version of the game. Like, there is no word on when the next book is coming out. People want, like, I hear people say, I want a new book for this. I want them to come out with all of the clan books. You know, each one of the supplemental books were kind of focused on one clan or another, even though it didn't directly say that. It kind of did. And they want all the clans out for it. And I'm against that. I'm like, put out a new edition of this book and start over, because there are so many things wrong with it.
Yes, this edition is so-so. I don't want to say it's broken, but it's so choppy and it does not make sense in many areas. It leaves so much to the imagination where you have to fill in the blanks. I'd love it if they went back and did clarifications. Instead of all the bad wording, they could have something that is more meaningful and functional. After that is done, they can worry about getting everything else out. I don't need extra rules that are in bits and pieces that don't make sense with the core rule set. Make sure the core rules make sense first. Get that out. Get that to being 100% functional and will integrate with any new content they're planning on putting out. Do that immediately. Once it's done, you can use that as an informational pathway. Let that inform how you build out the rest of your expansions. That would make the whole game better.
I was hoping with expansions that they came out with, they would see rules that were bad and amend those rules in the next edition, in the next just supplement books. Like, hey, this isn't, here is an alternate way to do these kinds of things. But no, nothing like that. There's no self-awareness of the bad parts of this game.
They want to ignore the bad parts of the game. And many people will apologize for it.
There's a lot of good stuff. I like this edition. I think there's ways to make it, like, great, because there's a lot of good stuff here. And I don't want the bad stuff to make people run away from this game. So good stuff, of course, is, well, first it starts out with the story and the lore. And the Rokugan is, the world of Legend of the Five Rings is one of the best worlds out there for a role-playing game.
Yeah, I think the setting is very expansive. There is a ton of detail. If you're one of those people who want to play along with this large meta story that's going on in the setting that's there, then there is so much to draw from, so much history. There has been so much added to this world. Setting and lore going back so many years, back to the 90s. If there is a playstyle you want to jump back to, if you're like us and been playing all this time and want to go back and relive the heyday and those early storylines where the plot was being developed alongside the card game by the card game, you can do that. If you want to start fresh and make your own thing inside the world, there is enough of a framework there that you can plug and play all of those different pieces to make your own plot lines and unique timeline. Like with what Corey is doing with Shadow Empire, there is so much you can do here.
If you look on the L5R website now, they are talking about the legacy of L5R. There are articles that are recent that are, hey, remember when we did like Biden Pass? And hey, remember when we did like...
Nostalgia.
Do you guys, is this just a nostalgia thing? Because it seems like it's a regret, like starting the lore over from square one. They feel like they're regretting it. I didn't mind them restarting the lore over. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, but if you're going to restart the lore over, the original lore was really engaging, really cool. Are you just retelling that same story? Why are you retelling that same story? What's going on here? What's going to be different? What is the new story you want to tell? And why do we have to restart the lore for it? Amnesty Flight did not come up with a compelling answer to that.
Not at all. They kind of floundered with that for quite some time.
It did. Did you read the most recent fiction?
No, I have not read the most recent fiction.
They just put it for Gold Road, the board game that's coming out. And it's fine. It's fine. Everything is just kind of fine. It's not...
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel the excitement I used to have. So with these videos, we're going to do one once a week where me and Tarek, we get together and we're just going to talk about a role-playing game. We're going to look at the book and kind of pull it apart. And we'll do Adventures in Rokugan. I want to do Adventures in Rokugan. We'll do it. I think there's some good stuff in Adventures in Rokugan, especially because it's based on 5th edition. Those rules are play-tested. They're robust. They make sense. While a lot of the rules in here just kind of don't. But like we're trying to talk about the good stuff. And the good stuff is the world. The world is great. Even though that they rebooted it, I don't mind that they rebooted it. You don't have a lot of baggage because you reboot it. Even in your own game, you don't have a lot of baggage. You can just be like, let's go. I don't have to know everything. But the lore is great. It's part fantasy, part like traditional Japanese stuff with a bunch of other like Asian things just thrown in for flavor willy-nilly here and there.
Yeah.
But I always thought like if they wanted to reboot the lore, they should have
like gone for a harder retooling of the lore.
I would have made each clan lean in to their Asian counterparts a little more that were non-Japanese. That's all.
So like the unicorn be more Mongol inspired, maybe
they already are. The unicorn don't need changing. But like the Phoenix.
Well, I mean, I feel like they're kind of
be more Korean. The the dragon be more Tibetan, that sort of thing. The crab be more Ming Dynasty China. Like I think that would move away too far for most of the fans. I think that the fans love how the clans are. And
I think a lot of the fans like the fact that it's grounded in the Japanese mythology and then have flavors. But I agree that like for instance, going back to the unicorn, I think the unicorn are actually like a perfect embodiment of the like half-heartedness of how you want to lean into the other cultures, because like the Moto are very Mongol, but everyone else is still Japanese samurai. And it feels like a mishmash, except for the like Horiyuchi or the Yuchi, maybe. Those families in that clan feel a little bit more foreign, maybe like closer to the Burning Sands. But everybody else in the clan feels so it feels almost like just disjointed in a sense. That it's not fully leaning into one cultural identity, but a mixture of a bunch of cultural identities, which is a good melting pot like metaphor. But I don't know. Like that's what I'm saying in terms of like if you wanted to lean into the clans, have them lean into the cultural identities that they're coming from, then maybe you take those and you really ramp them up a lot further. That would leave some ambiguity spaces for like the lion, the crane, and the scorpion, who I think formulate a kind of triumvirate of Japanese culture in that like the era.
Yeah,
we have like the courtiers, the like underhanded kind of shinobi group,
the ninja, and then your standard samurai.
Standard samurai, exactly. And that kind of forms a core identity of Japanese culture, while all these around them are a little bit further off. And then you have like the Wako pirates of the Mantis clan, like that's some interesting little pieces there.
So let's talk about the dice. the dice and how you make checks and successes. I think while a lot of people are turned off by symbol dice, I think it's a winner. I don't mind the symbol dice at all. What about you?
I have no problem with the symbol dice. I think it adds something a little more interesting, and I mean, it's random still, but I feel like it's still also a little tactical, that you can do a lot more with symbols to replace this concept of like raises. I liked raises, so I liked the D10 system they had before, and like the idea of raising and like raising the difficulty for yourself, but also doing something cool as a result of that. I think Opportunities encapsulates that really well. Yes. Like it takes that concept and encapsulates it in a different way. And I think the risk reward idea is still there in a sense when you're rolling. The one thing I don't like is the way that they've structured skill and ring balances for the dice. The dice I think are perfectly fine. I would like to see a better balancing between, like, do you want skill, do you want ring dice, and making that feel more fluid in the system. I feel like that's a disconnection point where a lot of people feel like they're still in the old game where like I have to have a bunch of rings, so I'm going to pump my rings up as high as I possibly can because that's kind of the mentality, where I think skills are a lot more important, really. And so it's like,
I don't think skill dice give as much of a benefit over a ring die than it feels like it should. Like
that's also
a ring
true.
dice is something you want to keep, right? That tells you how many dice you keep, and the ring die are fine. And then the skill die doesn't feel like it gives you a huge advantage.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't, mainly because while there are like 2 explosive successes on a skill die, and there's only 1 on a ring die, it's a D12. So it's the same amount of like, it's the same. And I see this with a skill die, like the amount of extra success you get from it is just slight. It's just minimal, just enough. And I don't think it's just enough. I think it needs to be just a little more.
Yeah, or maybe have, like, I still like the idea of skill mastery levels that they had in like 3rd edition and 4th edition, where like if you get to a certain rank in your skill, then it will help you to modify the effects of your role in that skill. So like I think it would be more interesting if you could have that same concept of like advantages being re-rolling dice. Be like, if you have a certain skill level of the skill, you get a free re-roll of one of those skill dice. Like, boom, that will help you to edge up skills and make them feel more impactful, and also make them feel like you're learning, like your character specializing into certain skills. Because I've noticed in our even in our gaming group, a lot of people really like to generalize and be like, I just need to be good at everything.
Yeah.
So they put a couple points in every skill. They put at least, a couple points in every ring. So they have a like really balanced character sheet. But I'm like, you're never going to be super good at any one thing at that point. And I feel like a lot of people start complaining about not being effective, but you've overgeneralized yourself to the point where now you're not great at anything. You're just kind of okay at a bunch of things.
Well, I think that has a lot more to do with my gaming style, in which I will put things in my game that make every skill useful.
Yeah.
But the thing is like role-playing games in general reward certain skills for and everybody wants to be that. I want to be that badass guy. I want to be this kind of a character. And
I want to shine in this.
Then I pull out, you need aesthetics to figure out where the secret door is, or and then they're like,
yeah,
but what? Huh?
Or labor to build the trap.
Yeah. And
like, you might know about traps, but can you really effectively build the trap or whatever?
Exactly. And now, because I pull in all of these aspects, everybody's scrambling to get different skills. And
yeah. And I mean, that's a cool, like, that's cool or whatever. Like, if you want to try to be at least a little skilled at everything, want to be the Renaissance man of Rokugan, that's cool. But like, I don't know. I feel like these games really encourage you to like take on an identity and really lean into that identity. And I don't feel like people do that enough.
So
And it's not just in your games, because I went to Gen Con a while back, and I felt that same thing in Gen Con too. The way people were talking about how they built their characters, like their home characters, and are bringing them into the like Heroes of Rokugan environment. They had the same kind of feel where they were like splitting up their focuses and trying to broaden their characters' horizons. And maybe that's just like everybody wants to be a well-rounded person.
Everybody wants to be able to do everything. I want to be involved in all of the things. And a lot of people just don't like, when there's a problem to be solved, one character can be like, I'll be the guy who does that.
I have that covered. Exactly.
And now you don't.
And every clan and family has that kind of niche that like already kind of built into their identity. And the idea of like smashing that identity in favor of like generalism just seems like counterintuitive to me, because it's like you're playing an Asahina Shugenja and you should probably lean into like magical illusions and maybe like support magic and maybe design and artisanry and stuff like that. But I'll see that person playing like a very generalist and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to take some combat skills too, because I want to be able to punch some people and like in case we have a fight come up. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting decision to make. Like I don't know.
So, okay, in a level-based game, you don't have a choice but to kind of special. You cannot be a jack of all trades in a level-based game.
Not special.
But in a skill-based game, like Legend of the Five Rings, right? There is a kind of incentive to get all skills at least a 1 because they're cheap.
That's
getting
true.
your skills up really high is so expensive, and you're just like, well, I can just throw a couple points here and there, and then whenever that comes up, I can help. I can be I can add dice to the person who's actually specialized in it.
That's true. Yeah, there's a little bit of an incentive there, especially because of how they do their like support systems. Their assistance is very valuable if you have a skill.
What do you think of the different like air, earth, fire, water, void, and how we roll though, like the approach system?
I feel like it generalizes. So, I mean, if you scale this back, it's too general in my opinion.
Yes.
If you scale it back to the older editions, though, each ring it represented a very specific foundational aspect of your character. Like your strength and your perception were based on your water ring. Your charisma and your reflexes were based on your air ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those had very concrete definitions that were very like directly intrinsically tied to the kind of character you were building. Whereas these rings just feel like very generic nowadays.
You can do anything
and
with
really
anything.
What you're doing, exactly, really what you're doing is just making sure you have enough in the ring that is tied to the technique you want to use. And that's it. As long as you have like a 4 in that, you're fine, because you can do your little technique-y things all as much as you want, and you can probably argue your way into the like, let me roll with this ring all the time.
All the time.
You know what I mean? Which feels,
I've heard
feels like
people have said like that's a problem that they have, is their players just concentrate on one ring and they don't care about anything else because they can just use that one ring for everything.
It rules them all.
And they asked me for advice on this, and I say, okay, there's 2 things you can do. First, you look at adventure modules. In those adventure modules, they'll have skills that can only use one specific ring. Like this skill must use this. And 2, skills that can use anything are modified when you use the wrong thing or the right thing. It's easier to use one ring and really hard to use another.
Yeah. Elemental balances on what the check requires, and I like that you've picked up on integrating that into your like custom game, your home game, and I think that's a very good rule of thumb to go by. Of like,
this book doesn't make that very clear.
It doesn't. No, it's an intuitive thing. You have to kind of intuit from all of the context of the game as a whole, like adventure modules and how their challenge systems work in those adventure modules. And if you don't have that context, you're gonna fall into this trap of like, yeah, all my players, the water guy wants to do a water, and every single one of my characters has one of their rings really high. And then you have a problem too of like, what if two people have the same ring really high? Now they're going to be competing to try to do the same things all the time with the same rings and kind of overlapping.
I thought there was going to be more techniques that change people's stances or forbid people from using a specific stance. Like, for example, if you're in entangling terrain, all it does is double movement. I would be like, it's entangling terrain. You can't use water stance on it.
Yeah. So you can't move faster through it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That would, and then not only that, but like techniques that would block off your ability to go to a technique, another stance, or conversely, a technique that lets you swing from one stance to the next, like you flow from kata to kata, that would like get you into these different stances, and make them more valuable to use. Because I also noticed that in combats, a lot of people just like they're on that one ring stance, or if not on their one ring stance, they're on the like most valuable stance, because like Earth, they can't critical strike me, so I'm just gonna stay here on Earth ring, or water, so I can get extra moves per turn to like calming breath every turn.
So you mean like a technique that would be like, I start on water stance, and at the end of the technique, I end on Earth stance?
I'm on void. Yeah, I'm on void, and then from void, I have to use this other technique, this other kata, and it moves me to fire stance, because now I've like
that's kind of
channeled
cool.
up all the energy and then surged into the fire stance, because that makes more sense to like how Kinjutsu actually works. You find openings, you're making movements, you're making reads, and that flows you into the next technique that you want to use. Right?
That's a bit complicated, and
it is.
It's going to be complicated for the creator of the game to integrate that, and for the player to figure out what's the best way to move through techniques.
What's the best plot through? Yeah.
And
but, I mean, I think people could handle it. I really do. I really think people can handle it. I think people underestimate the ability for players once they've gotten used to a system to really start plotting out that development. Some people it would be a real challenge for. Like, for instance, Matt would probably have more of a challenge getting through that kind of a system. But then again, if like it would take just a few times of like seeing what the flow is and what your character's strengths and weaknesses are to try to get through and like decide that. And that might be one of the big problems. Is there's also choice paralysis with a lot of the techniques, because there's so many. I see Sasha doing it. Sasha's new to the game as well, and she also gets that choice paralysis situation.
There are a lot of techniques,
options, and a lot of techniques, a lot of information out there. So she gets this choice paralysis of like, oh, but which one should I really be focusing on? Which one should I really be trying to get to? So I can see that also being another problem here. Is like once a system has been built up so far, then you have so many options.
Speaking of choice paralysis, using opportunity.
Oh yeah, Jesus! Another perfect segue into choice paralysis. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I have to have it open on my whenever we play. I have it open on the VTT, and I'm just constantly looking and thinking on my turn. Okay, I'm going to be on this stance on that turn. Here's what I'm going to be trying to do. Let me look at opportunities so that I know ahead of time what I really want to spend them on. But like, that's an investment, man. And you sometimes are focused on doing that, so you don't hear what happened during the last turn, and then you're like, oh crap, I gotta.
So this is opportunity is, and in other Genesis games based on the Genesis system, like the Star Wars game, they have what is it, advantage and disadvantage, I think it is, which is basically the same as opportunity. And what I like about it, I like a yes and system. I think like things happen and a good or bad thing could happen on top of that. I'm cool with that. What I'm not cool with is that it happens every single roll. I think, that's basically it, is that the amount of times that just weird stuff happens is way too often, and the stuff you can do is just way too broad, or like it's hard to figure it all out. So
there's just so much. Yeah, there's a density of things, and then you also have it broken down as like, what type of role or scene are you playing in currently? how does that impact the role? Is there any value in the role that you were making to have an event, like an opportunity? So it's like slimming down that system, I think, would be very helpful.
I
Like,
think I think yes and should happen once every 3 to 5 rolls, not every single roll.
And on top of that, I think it can be more free form, right? I don't know that you have to have this plotted out. These are the subset of things, like these 3 things are things that you can do on this for this specific type of role, and 2 of those things are going to be unhelpful in the current situation. So you're like shoehorning in ways to use the opportunity. So like allow a little bit more freeform development there. Yes, anding is all about like improving the quality of the storytelling. So just like try to improv your way through that. I know that may be difficult for some people, but I think it's not terribly hard to come up with a positive or negative consequence to an action.
So I got a comment here from Johnny Rico that says that they find the core rulebook excellent for thumbing through over coffee and terrible as a games rules guide.
It is difficult to get the rules out of the core rulebook, I think.
It's a beautiful book.
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful coffee table book with lots of wonderful art in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic art. The artists are fantastic for L2R. Really, they are. But I agree that it's hard to get, like, just from a perspective of, like, how easily can somebody grok the rules having come to this book for the first time? It's going to be hard because they're spread out all over the place. They reference each other in weird places, and you have to go back and, like, I mean, when we first started, I don't know if you remember, we were constantly having to go search for rules and clarifications, trying to figure out what was what, where does it even live. Even still, it's hard for me to go back to the rule book and try to figure out where things are.
I'm going to toot Cypher once more, and say, have you seen how they do their book layouts?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have a sidebar.
A bunch of them now.
Their sidebar basically is your reference index, and when there is something that you may not understand or need another reference to, their footnotes are over. They footnote their book, so you can always be moving through it and figuring out, oh, I don't know what this is over here, I can reference that now and then come back. And
exactly, yeah.
Why did this take so long for role-playing games to figure out what a footnote is?
I mean, and not only that, but like I've noticed that a lot of their PDFs too will link, so you can click the page and get to the page, or to get the reference link and then come back quickly. That makes it so much easier to like speed through and kind of understand what's going on. Like making a character for the first time in that game you ran, what was it called, Diamond Throne or something like that?
Yeah.
That was super easy for me, even though there was a completely new rule set and I was going through trying to figure out. I got through that. I had a very complicated character with a bunch of magical stuff and all kinds of crazy things, and I understood exactly what I needed to know at almost every single step with a couple of tabs open on my computer. Made that character within like a couple hours. That trying to do that in L5R for the first time reading the L5R book was like, I couldn't do it. I went with
the 20
one of the simplest characters I could possibly make.
One of the great things about this edition is they integrated the 20 questions into character creation. I'm going to go further down into this book, I mean, we're passing up Strife here, but yeah, the 20 questions, the 20 questions, creating a character, the game of 20 questions, like, was in all of the older editions, but it was kind of a side note. And our game master would be like, you get an extra XP or 2 for doing the 20 questions. But here, you have to do it in order to actually create your character. And I love this. I think this is amazing. Go ahead.
So after showing Sasha this system, I think I can hear myself echoing on your side again.
Oh, sorry. Let me pull my microphone back over here.
No worries. Yeah, so after showing Sasha this system of like 20 questions and how it is integrally tied to your character creation process, she was so inspired that she created like a D&D. She loves D&D, so she created a whole like document for that you had to create for her campaigns, that you had to like use as a player of her campaigns to like make a character,
Mm-hmm.
because this was like she was like, this is exactly what you need in order to like have a character concept that's really fleshed out and like that that character and how you're going to play them. This is like perfect for mapping that out. And I agree, it's always been something that I've really like enjoyed doing, not only just like the like, oh yeah, you get the extra XP, like you were saying, it's kind of divorced from the process of making your character. But like every L5R character I've ever made and every 7th character I've ever made, I have fully filled out a 20 questions for that character, because it really does help me to like consider all these different avenues about what who this person is, what do they go through,
Mm-hmm.
how do they develop, and the way that they integrated that into character creation in this edition, phenomenal. I
And
love it. It should have been like this from the get-go.
the thing about the 20 questions is that it tells you that this game is story driven. It's not supposed to be
Yes,
some sort of simulator game.
combat simulator. Yeah.
Combat simulator. It's supposed to be a drama based narrative that has some like cool, ninja and samurai action happening inside of it. And yeah, that's exactly what I want.
And it's a primer. It's also a primer for you to like understand a little bit more about the world and your place within it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it lets you examine your character's motivations, your character's like history and growing up, like all of those things help to define the kind of person
it's
that
made for
and the world.
you to have drama with your character.
Exactly.
Like, we are depth. When you play Legend of the Five Rings, you are more of an actor playing a role rather than a person moving something on a board.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
And whereas
it is less focused.
Yeah. And D&D has been like the combat simulator du jour for a long, long, long time. And so moving from that to another game like L5R is a huge shock for some people.
Oh yeah. But it also opens up a whole other world, right? Because so many people got into nowadays, so many people got into role playing through the D&D pipeline, the 5th edition pipeline, which is like baby's first RPG game, right?
Right.
It really is so simplified, so like dumbed down, even from the past edition of D&D.
Yes, which I won at Dungeons and Dragons, and it was advanced.
Exactly. Arguments can be made that it was too complex in the past or what have you, but still, they've dumbed it down to the point where anybody can get on board. You don't have to have any real experience with RPGs. You can get into making a character and start rolling dice and beating up beholders day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easy. But L5R and systems like L5R, not necessarily
World of Darkness,
like the Genesis system or whatever, World of Darkness, 7th, like all these different, a Cypher system even, they give you such a breadth of possibility in the way that you want to run your game, the way that you want to structure your narratives, the way that you want to present challenges, that it is like breathing new life into somebody who's creative. So if you, like Sasha, if you started with this like only thinking in terms of D&D and you're opening yourself up to a new system, this is like eye-opening and lets you have so much more creativity, so much more flow into how you want to approach things. That it's
by the way, if you guys that are chatting with us, thank you, Benjamin. Hi, how are you doing? This is the Dead Unicorn, the role-playing game club. We're going to reference people in our club.
Yeah.
Which includes Sasha and Matt and Howard and Crystal and
James. Everyone.
Everybody.
All the people.
All of the people that are part of our club. This is where we get our baseline is right with these people. This is, how we interpret the game is through not only through what they've presented to us, but through the players at our table and what their expectations are and what our expectations of them are.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. Like the gaming group helps to dictate how all these things are going to flow and what games get played and how we're doing. Like we're going to be doing a Pathfinder campaign here soon. We're going to be starting here soon, and that has a couple new faces as well that we're going to be bringing into the club and bringing onto the streams. And yeah, those individuals who we bring into our gaming circles are going to help us dictate the kind of games we play, the stories we tell, the challenges we want to face. And I think the systems that we choose to engage with also help to mold us as like role players and as game masters, right? They help us to unlock new ways of telling stories and engaging with our players.
We actually put in a Dungeons and Dragons ban in January, and it's over now. We don't have to ban.
The moratorium is over.
The moratorium's over. We just said 6 months ban. We're gonna look at what the state of Dungeons and Dragons is at this point. We still haven't I haven't created that conversation yet with our gaming group, our club here at the Dead Unicorn, but I'd like to, and we're gonna do an update on that pretty soon. But let's get back to Legend of the Five Rings.
Sasha's gonna go nuts at that point. We're gonna have a whole. We should bring her on for that one because she's gonna have a whole lot of stuff to say.
So Strife, I have not been shy about my love for the rule Strife.
In older editions, you didn't have Strife. This is a very new thing to 5th edition L5R. There's never been a mechanic like it necessarily. I don't think. As far as I can remember, I don't think there's anything that approaches this level of complexity with it. But I love Strife too. I think it is fantastic. I think it is something that more games should consider, like the mental state of your character.
Yes.
Like some people have sanity and stuff like that, but that's more like Eldritch Horror stuff, and never like the day-to-day struggle that you're having to deal with the Strife.
You can dumb down insanity. Just bring insanity just a little back, and instead of going insane, you just have a panic attack, or just you're need
overwhelmed in the
food.
Moment. How do you deal
need
with
comfort
that?
food? You need to curse that guy out right now because things are bad, and
you need to blow up at the ticket teller.
Yeah, you need to go full Karen right now.
I need your manager. Exactly.
And I love that.
I think it's so good because it fits so well. Like it's so real to the human experience of everyday life and the stresses and struggles that you have to go through. I mean, let alone samurai's samurai hierarchical struggle of social dynamics. Regardless of that, even in day-to-day life, as your person, there are anxieties and stressors and relaxers that you use in your everyday life to get through those days.
And I love.
And why would that be any different for your adventurer?
I love the disadvantaged anxieties.
I love that.
Yeah, you get 3 Strife because
passions and anxieties.
Yeah.
And this is something that you really love that helps to relax you, or this is something that you really, it just is the triggering moment that you always dread to go after or have to deal with. And I think it's a great thing. I love trying to role play through those things too. They're fun.
I've been trying to add these. I haven't had a place to put this kind of stuff yet, but I think I did it during the celebration in Dark Horse, White Dragon Dark Horse, where if you have a very good experience, even if it's not part of your passions, if you have an amazing meal, or you won at a cool game of chance, or you had a great romantic moment, or I would say lose stress, lose Strife points because of that. Right?
You had an unexpectedly pleasant time walking along the beach or something. Yeah, those are those moments that recharge you as a person.
Now that I think about it, if I put you guys on a beautiful vista in the forest or a calming glade, I should get rid of a couple Strife from y'all. Now that I think about it, that should be something I should do.
I think that's a great idea. And also the converse. If you are walking up on a scene that is horrible, I think you've done this before.
We've done that. Yeah, we've done the converse.
Yeah, where it's this is a stressful moment. I don't care who you are or what your anxieties are. This is just a naturally stressful moment.
So Strife, great rule. Wonderful.
I love it.
It's the best thing that comes out of this edition of L5R.
I agree. and managing strife, like the ability to manage your strife, the composure, the like all the subsection of it is also interesting. I like all of it. Talk about fatigue for a second. The converse.
The converse fatigue. Okay, I was about to move to something different, but yes, let's talk about.
I want to talk about fatigue. For a second.
Let's do that.
So strife, I think, is a great way of dealing with like your emotional well-being. Where fatigue, I feel like, is, I don't know if it's doing too much or just not doing enough. But I kind of hate fatigue system and their critical damage system. I think it is way too complex. I think it tries to do too much. The fatigue and critical strike system, and wounds, and it ends up under delivering on like so many things. Like the older editions of LFR, the damage also was bad because it was like a snowball effect where as soon as you got hurt, you're on your way down, and you're probably like the first person to get hurt, you're probably going to lose the fight regardless. You had to really pull it out of your ass to come back from being.
You got to spend that void to ignore wound penalties all the time.
To get a strike in and then hope that you got it in hard enough so that you actually hurt your opponent more than you were hurt, and then rebalance it out. So I didn't like that system either of wounds. I don't like this system of endurance and fatigue because it's so wildly variable. And on top of that, like it seems completely tacked on as like just the converse of your strife and composure, to make the like endurance and fatigue thing system. And then it doesn't matter because you're not even getting hurt with that. And maybe you pass out, maybe you don't pass out. Who knows what happens when you actually get
understand it. So
it's so weird. It's such a weird system. And then the systems of critical striking is also really weird.
Every time we use one of the terms to do combat, people get the wrong idea because it's like, oh, did I hit? Yes, you did. Okay, I do this much damage. Did he take it? How much? How wounded does he look now? Well, he didn't take any damage. He took fatigue, which because he was able to defend.
He defended
your attack. But I thought
you hit his defense. But if I hit his defense, didn't I hit him? No, you didn't. You hit his like parry or whatever. Like,
whatever. Yeah, it feels bad. So you didn't actually hit.
You don't do anything
unless you critically strike. And it's like, well, I have poison on my blade. How do I get my poison to hurt him? And it's like, well, sometimes poison just works even through fatigue for some reason. Nothing makes sense.
Sometimes poison just works through fatigue if you're like feeding it to them, like come suckle at my poison teat. Or you have to do like I have to hit a critical strike, and then it will increase the severity of my critical strike. And then how do I approach my critical strikes? Because everybody has these techniques and they're really cool and they want to use them, but then you can't do a critical strike if you use that technique. Ha 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 ha. So now you have to go about some other weird way of getting a critical strike back into the action. And so it feels really like daunting to a new player to try to actually do something effective. It will confuse people. Like one of our players in our weekly sessions, Matt, struggles to feel effective because he doesn't understand the rules well enough to really navigate what it's going to take to be an effective combatant and deal real damage to people.
Mm-hmm.
And like also your weapons, like some people specialize in using certain weapons, and those weapons do like nothing on a critical strike. Whereas some people use a katana or like a freaking spear that do hellacious amounts of damage on a critical strike. And then the bleeding or no bleeding, and then blah blah blah.
It doesn't feel balanced. The critical strikes don't feel balanced at all. It's like I hit you with a giant club, and yet the critical strike means I do nothing to you. Absolutely, you don't even get a single wound. For some reason.
Yeah, you're not even fatigued. You're only fatigued. Like what? And then, but that could be such a damage, like a club or a hammer. Think about that, how impactful those things are, and their critical strike is like 2. Like,
no, you don't understand. A hammer is like, you get hit by a hammer, take 10 fatigue. All right, now I got critical strike by that hammer. Okay, take 1 deadliness.
Yeah,
it's like
what? Your shirt got mildly torn. Like,
from a hammer.
Great. Yeah. Apparently, keep hitting me with hammers. I'm not going to have any problems. Yeah, exactly.
And
But it's just like wildly confusing. And like I said, then you have like like some weapons do bleeding damage, which is super devastatingly powerful.
Just about to say
And then
conditions. Bleeding is like what the hell is bleeding?
Yeah. Constantly take, like Matt did the other day, constantly taking more and more and more critical strikes from just trying to do something.
I made
like
a video.
Away.
I made a video called "Infinite Critical Strikes" because that's what bleeding does. It makes you take infinite critical strikes.
It is insane. The mere fact of trying to resist the strike itself causes another wound to blow up. It really feels in my mind every time it happens. I just imagine the anime like samurai cut the dude and then just like rain amount, like torrential rain downpour of blood just spraying out of them, like
Fists of the North Star version
of everybody. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has a high blood pressure.
Exactly. That's what I imagine when the bleeding effect happens, is like, because everything will make that blood worse, that every action, even just trying to be like, oh, I'm bleeding, acknowledging the fact that you're bleeding will make you bleed more. Like, it's insanity. And it's so powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's amazingly powerful. It's and then there's dangerous terrain, which is the inverse of that. It's like everything's on fire, but if I just stand still, nothing will happen to me.
Exactly. I'll be fine. It's the dog in the house. It's like, this is fine. Because as long as I'm sitting here still, the fire won't hurt me.
You don't take damage unless you keep dice with strife on them. So if you never make a check to keep anything with strife on you, you can just stand there in the middle of the fire and never die.
Yeah, the building is burning down, but I'll be fine. And then once the fires die down, then I'll just walk off and continue with my day.
The same way with the burning condition. If you are on fire, if you're literally on fire,
just stand there and it'll burn my clothes off, and then I'll be fine.
After a burning character performs an action, the character suffers 3 strife and 3 physical damage that ignores their resistance. So don't do an action. That's it.
Yeah, don't move around.
Don't move.
Just stand perfectly still for a few minutes until once your clothes are gone, you'll be fine again. It's mild inconveniences. It's a mild inconvenience and a like a bit of your time wasted.
Yeah,
and then you'll be fine. You'll be good. Also, like the dazed, enraged, all of those other conditions, they're so like minutely effective because they're so easy to get out of.
Oh, and like, you just don't.
The reason I say that is that
for one turn.
Go ahead.
You just don't do something for one turn.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying is like the way you apply those conditions is usually really hard. Like you have to hit them with a technique in this specific way, and you have to get a high TN to hit. And then once you do all of those steps, they just don't do something on their turn, and now they're back to fine.
You have to do. The worst one is you have to do keep a number of opportunity equal to their vigilance.
Exactly.
And it's like most people's vigilance are 2. And that's enough to do just a critical strike. Just do that.
So why don't I just do that and make them bleed to death on the floor for even thinking about it?
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's so much easier to do.
Just
right? Like they can't even talk at that point. Like, yeah, you're fine. Just always do critical strikes. That's the best thing you could possibly do. That's the best condition. The best condition is critical strike.
Have you read the more intense version? Grittier Games. Here it is. Have you read Grittier Games? On page 288.
I have. Yeah, I think I remember we talked about this before.
So it increases the deadliness of all weapons by 4.
Yeah.
If characters have the bleeding condition at the end of the scene, they die. Unless they spend a void point, they just die.
Yeah. You're dead. Yeah. If you're bleeding, you're dead. Which, I mean,
if you're wounded, each time a character fails a fitness check to remove this condition, the condition worsens from lightly to severely to dead.
It is very. Let's be real here for a second. It's absurd in the context of a fantasy role-playing game to be that deadly. But in the converse, we are talking about like I am attacking you with a giant freaking spear or like naginata, right? Bladed, curved bladed spear, and I slice your leg open. That femoral artery is going to bleed out in a couple seconds, right? You're pretty much toast if you don't get immediate medical treatment right then and there. That being said, in the fantasy role-playing game system, does anyone want to deal with that kind of like make 30 characters, bring them to the game, we're going through this?
You look back at War.
It makes
you look back at War, and most of the people, like, there was a lot of people who died, but most people didn't die from War. They just got beaten down and crawled back. And
most people, in fact, most people who died in War didn't die from wounds. They died from infections or illness. Like, historically speaking, the biggest killer of people in War was disease. Right, and illness.
I wouldn't say that grittier games are more realistic. They are grittier.
Yeah, they are grittier. I mean, that's my point. Is that
festering is a thing, sure.
I like the festering thing.
Deadliness plus 4 to all weapons. Like, the weapons for deadliness aren't scaled right anyways.
At all, anyway. Yeah. It is a way to give hammers and like blunt weapons a boost, which I think they should just do anyway. But what I was going to say is I think like the only reason for a dungeon master in any game to use the grittier rules is to disincentivize combat, to incentivize your players to think about how to like get through challenges and conflicts in a less like always go to fighting like murder hobo style, which in L5R, I think L5R already incentivizes you so much using techniques and different school abilities and all this stuff to try to solve challenges in more creative ways. It's not, like you said, it's not a combat simulator game necessarily. You can do combat and have these really epic scenes, but it's not necessarily the central focus of L5R. So I don't know that you need grittier rules to incentivize your players to do that. But I know that in games like D&D and Pathfinder and stuff, sometimes using grittier rules will force your players to reconsider how to approach battles. The problem is those systems also don't have robust enough rules to allow your players to really do that. And if your players are only used to playing D&D as a combat simulator game, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for them to break out of that mold, think creatively without rules to support them doing that, and come up with ways to beat those challenges using out-of-the-box thinking. L5R, though, granted, is a much better system for managing that kind of role play and that kind of creative problem solving. I think it is very good for that. I think its combat system and its mass battle system are two of the least effective parts of this game.
The mass battle is really, really bad. It's tries to be a mass combat simulator instead of like focusing on the characters. Now you are just you are your army basically, and it's like in a lot of games, starship combat is really boring because you do the same. Like, I'm the repair guy. I do my repair roll every turn. I am the shoot guy. I shoot the thing every turn. The mass battle feels like that. I move forward. I roll my dice against the other person. I take the damage. They take damage.
Attrition is had.
There's no finesse, pizzazz. There's no
The former editions also did mass battle pretty badly. Like 4th edition in particular, I remember being really bad at
you just took damage to your character every turn.
Yeah, you just constantly were taking damage and dying, basically.
I remember we almost had a TPK. Everybody died except for my crab character because he had damage reduction, and that was the reason he survived, is because he just kept negating all of the damage he took.
I had to. I remember the reason I know 4th edition was so bad was because I ran a campaign in 4th edition for a bunch of players, and it was mainly mass battles. Like, they were going through as an army and doing stuff, and I completely overhauled how the mass battle system worked. I wrote a whole set of custom rules. I integrated the card game into the game so that they'd be doing these like battles with they'd have like cards that they can use to give bonuses to different units based on their school, based on their advantages and disadvantages. I did a whole way too much effort. I had 2 notebooks full of notes on how these battles would play out, and it was very engaging for the players and made it not just a boring one guy rolls the dice and everybody gets damage every round. So it made it more engaging, but I don't know how to fix that system in those older editions, and it feels like they wanted to move away from that auto damage system and just do it very abstracted. But they had a better system for this back in, I think, 2nd and 3rd edition L5R, where the mass battles gave you these moments of time where you were like, here's a really important pivotal linchpin moment in the battle. Now let your players play that scene out, right? Here's a chance to go and take the enemy's banner and their honor guard. Go and kill that. Or you see an opportunity to go and face the general with you and your little cohort. Now we do an intimate scene where you get to go and play that out. And I think that adds a lot more to the story and narrative focus that games like L5R are good at. Instead of just boiling it down to this weird abstraction layer or this generic everybody takes damage, one person rolls their battle skill against the enemy opponent. And
what I do love about the older editions is when you roll an event that happens, it's you doing something really cool that affects the battle on your own.
Exactly.
You're part of the drama. You're part of the story. And that's what we want. We want you to be part of the story. I agree wholeheartedly. If this is not part of the story, why the hell are we doing it? What's the point?
Yeah, what is the point of us just sitting around rolling battle checks to have mindless NPCs that we'll never know, never impact the story ever again, get whittled away or come back, and it's just so abstract that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It'd be better off just rolling a die and saying, "Hey, you win." Great. Let's go.
Duels. Let's move on to duels.
Duels. Yeah.
Okay. I think they could have been better. I don't think they're terrible.
I do too.
I don't think they're terrible. It is an escalation of strife until one person can't take it anymore, and then a finishing blow happens. And
because you make a misstep. Yeah. I like that system. You are so tied up in the calculations of move, counter move, and making sure that you're not losing the initiative to your opponent, which is very real, right? I've done fencing before, you've done fencing before. There's a level of strife that goes into that maneuvering. I think one real big problem is that techniques kind of suck in duels.
Yep.
They're not as important.
And the
only real Jiu-Jitsu and the actions suck. Yeah, exactly. Being able to do more cool stuff, especially fantasy stuff, older editions had I bend like a reed. So as you strike out at me, I literally bend out of the way and dodge your attack. And that's a thing that I can set up ahead of time using a kata or something like that.
One of the better actions is predict, where you can write down what you think their ring was going to be.
Yeah.
The thing is you only have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it. So it's really, really hard.
This goes back to what I was saying the other day with the whole meta.
There should be actions that force characters off certain rings or get into the head of another person so you can understand what they're going to do next, or anything like that would have been great.
Yeah. So predicting should give you a check to try to figure out what their enemy is going to do next and have a counter to it. Counterplay move.
Yes.
Right? This is where I was talking about before. Having techniques that take you from one stance into another stance would be great too. Or because then you can do this kind of move counter move that flows around and feels much more like an actual organic dueling situation than before.
So we're agreed that the duel rules have an interesting core mechanic that they totally flubbed the execution of.
They whiffed on
it.
It's a great core mechanic, but as they tried to expand on it, they just whiffed. And if you've noticed, they have not put any other rules in to try to support or buff those mechanics. Even the strong dueling schools kind of suck at dueling. Everybody kind of sucks at dueling. And it's a crapshoot as to who's going to come out of that. And that crapshoot is heavily weighted on who has more ring and skill die.
Yeah, who has more?
Comes down
Who has a higher level to be compromised? Yeah,
exactly.
Who can take?
Who has a higher level to be compromised? Who can take more strife, and who can hit more reliably? Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can hit more reliably and have more composure, or have more ways to drop your fatigue or your strife, then you're gonna win.
And what's interesting, they made a Crane book and they made a Dragon book, and they didn't do anything with dueling in either of them.
Nothing expanding duels. Not even techniques. There's only a handful of Iijitsu techniques. They're all in the core rulebook, except for one that came out in the Ronin book and is completely useless in a duel. So like, I love dueling. I've always thought dueling was cool in older editions, even though it was not great in older editions either. I always thought it was like the pinnacle of this like really tense moment, and it has such a core like, I challenge you to a duel because you defamed my honor or did this bullshit thing. Or I want to use this as a ploy to like stop the proceedings so that we can get something done.
Yeah.
It's such a cool mechanical idea, but so poorly implemented.
Duels are baseball.
It is, yeah.
Duels are because there's the pitcher and the batter, and they're having this tense moment. That's why baseball movies are so popular. Like football or basketball movies don't have like the epicness of a baseball movie. And it's because of that dueling, that duel that happens, and it's personal, and it's that just that moment.
It's intimate.
It's intimate. It's intimate. Yeah. Okay, we don't have much time left in this stream. I only wanted to be an hour, and we haven't talked about intrigues.
Oh god!
So briefly on intrigues, they suck.
Yes, they're terrible.
Everybody
fights with words, word fighting.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I have a big video about intrigues and how to do them, and I have a criticism corner, yay! Where, for anybody who thinks that's like a little kid, that's me.
It's just my voice.
It's just me.
Yeah. Really.
So, everybody says, I get comments all the time saying I am wrong, that intrigues are good. And they always say like
somebody can defend that point.
I don't have competent social players and they need like a crutch or two. And I'm like, okay, but this isn't it.
This isn't the crutch. This is the opposite of a crutch. This is way more complex and way more like it is what is the word I'm trying to think of? It is just arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. It is a bunch of rules for arbitrary reasons for no purpose.
Yeah.
It is easier to have a social scene play out organically, even if it's complex. And I think everybody in our gaming group would have an easier time grokking that as an interaction rather than saying, okay, everybody break down into initiative. These are the small actions you can take. Read over all of your shuji and opportunity and all these different things. Have choice paralysis, not know what you're going to do on your turn, and then flub everything because a random roll made you suck at the thing that you're good at. Like, why? Why is the rules set up this way? This is bad. This is just bad. I'm not a great social person. I have high functioning autism. I have all kinds of social anxiety. I think I did phenomenally playing a courtier in any different iteration of LFR. It really taught me how to deal with social situations that I was unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with for most of my life. It opened my eyes into how to actually be more of a social person. It forced me to be. And to be kind of reading the person who I'm talking with and dealing with. It taught me how to be vicious at times where I was really timid to do so before. This game's version of that is terrible. It does not let me do any of those things. It gives me a very short amount of time because it's also a combat encounter. So you don't want every turn taking 45 minutes of people lambasting and like grandstanding on the stage. So it's like you're discombobulating and disjointing so much stuff that would organically happen anyway.
What this is supposed to do is simulate a party. Like a large group comes together and there's a lot of people to navigate. And the thing is though, when it comes down to it, all of the actions you take and all of the things you're doing, is a personal thing to one person or a tiny group of people that you're either trying to persuade or discredit. And if you're going to do that, if it's going to be me against another person, that's just a duel. And dueling rules are much better for social situations because you're constantly pulling up strife, and then the person who breaks composure first is the one that... And here's the thing.
Can be discredited. Yeah.
Here's the thing. It says under discredit somebody, you're supposed to raise their strife until they want to leave. The thing is there's no rules in Intrigue on how to raise somebody's strife during an intrigue.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that does that.
Unless you have techniques outside of this mechanic.
Or be on fire stance and just every round just keep opportunity.
Or spend opportunities.
That's it.
Which is what I was saying. You have to then sit down and plot out every turn of like, okay, I'm going to use the fire stance to do this and this shuji, and I have to make sure that I have all these things ahead of time to do it. You know what it makes me think of? I had this criticism when this book came out originally, which was it takes social situations and it forumizes it. Mm-hmm. Those forum games that we used to do for Winter Court and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That the way that we came up with a system to try to encourage and support people doing really complex social maneuvering in those games, they boiled it down into a very bland system. And then like this would work great if we were playing in a forum game.
Right.
Any actual in-person version of the game does not need this. Like, throw this intrigue system out completely and do it on your own. Do it on your own. If you have rules, if you want to use shuji or do something interesting, like some interesting ability, let the players like say, "Hey, right now is a perfect opportunity. I want to use this shuji to make this person do X, Y, Z, and let's deal with that." And that would be much easier to manage and reckon about than the intrigue system at all. The intrigue system is just
Robert Jameson says, "Lose that attitude, Corey." I love you, man.
Oh God,
love you.
Taking the attitude.
Thank you for watching.
I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about this. I apologize.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, wouldn't social? I think, and I've just thought of this just during the stream, that duels would work much better for social situations. A heightening of strife every turn until something, and even for like a romance scene where at the end the first person who breaks has to like confess. You know?
Yeah.
That would be so wonderful. It's so there's so much more to go through. How NPCs work, like we have problems with that.
God, there's so much,
how range bands work, we got problems with that.
Confusing. There's so many things that are just confusing and not well described. That's what I was talking about earlier.
I would have loved to go through a little bit of how the schools work. Do you like how the schools work with a single technique that gets better and better, and then a mastery technique, or do you think each rank should have its own?
I think it's an interesting idea. Replacing every, like what they did was they outsourced getting interesting.
I don't know why my internet keeps losing the stream. Okay, we're back. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so they they outsourced the getting cool technique abilities every level of your
for a while.
Yeah. That's okay.
Okay, I hope we're back. But yeah, like you basically what you're saying is every time you get a new school rank, a whole bunch of new techniques open up to you.
You have like a pool of different abilities.
Yeah.
Instead of having an interesting idea.
Why are we fucking? Why is this happening to me? We're having the bugs. We're having the bugs.
Now the bugs are coming.
The bugs are here, man. The bugs are freaking here. They hate us.
Oh, you can see my dog in the corner. It's just chilling by the door. Hello, bud.
Go ahead. We're on. We're going.
So yeah. I like I said. I think like having the one school technique that gets better overtime is a cool idea. I think they poorly implemented it because some schools don't really get much at all. Like some schools are really well thought out and really like direct, and they have a thing they can do and it stays good all over. And some schools are like, they don't really matter. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Not really going to affect you.
This technique happens only once in a blue moon. You have a blue moon technique, and it's not really gonna help you at all.
That's great. And then some of the like rank 6 abilities are like super powerful. It will happen all the time. Some of them will never happen.
Yeah.
Or will like give you the ability to make one massive weapon, like great weapon, and then but that's at the end of your game when everybody's gonna like you're gonna use it one game session and then you're done. Okay. And most game sessions, most campaigns don't last that long, so like there's a lot of things to say about it.
We have to move on. We have lives we got to get back to. Thank you everybody for Johnny, we do need a 5.5 edition or even a 6th edition. We need a big game overhaul.
I agree.
But we're gonna
learn from this edition though. Learn from this edition. It had a lot of cool stuff. Take it forward. And better it.
What we're gonna do, we're gonna do a live stream every week. I think on Sunday maybe. We're still figuring it out, but we're gonna do a weekly live stream where we pull apart a system, a game system, a game book. It won't always be Legend of the Five Rings, but it might be Legend of the Five Rings. And then we're gonna rank them at the end. And here's our ranker here at A through our S, A, B, C, D, and F. This version of Legend of the Five Rings, where would you put this, Tarek?
I'm
go ahead.
I am feeling like a B, maybe
B.
A B, yeah. I think it has a lot of good ideas, but it needs to execute those ideas.
I was gonna go C.
C, I could feel too. C is another. I think it's fair to say C.
Like, because B is like
B was me being
80. C is like I made a 70, which is like
70
passing.
Is probably more effective. I'm being generous.
D is like 60, and that's like about that.
I'm being generous with a B because I'm already comparing it to other editions, not only other editions of this, but other game systems.
Yeah,
and I think it does some things really well that other systems don't even try to do. But I think C is probably fair. We can always adjust if we get
like
other things.
For example, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is definitely an A.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is definitely an A tier game. So. Yeah. This one, well, it has a lot of great stuff, and we really love it, which doesn't make that a D. D would just be like, there's really nothing redeeming about it, except that the rules do work. And F would be like, nothing works here. Everything is bad.
Robert Jameson, B- because the game is phenomenal for how seamless the narrative can flow with proper handling from a GM. It is a different system. Is a difficult system that lacks the intuitiveness of D&D 5e. I think that's a good description. I came to the same conclusion that you arrived at. This game is a masterpiece symphony played completely out of tune. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. There's a lot of great ideas. They just didn't execute on it well. The performance after the conception failed. But it has a lot of good ideas. I want to see them redo this into a new edition. Keep a lot of the core concepts, but improve upon them and really play test them vigorously to get a feel for how they need to shake out, really. And that would be great.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope that this stream was an A for you, that it was a masterpiece symphony, even with the technical issues we had at the beginning. Thank you for helping us with that as well. And we'll see you next time on check our actual play channel out. Tomorrow night will be, no, not tomorrow night. We're not doing L5R. Nothing this week. But next week we'll be back to doing some actual plays on our sister channel. Mm-hmm. Here on this channel, I have some more Cypher content coming soon. And contact me. Tell me what kind of content you want to see on this channel, whether you want it to, you need that Dungeons and Dragons content, whether you need like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Aliens or Cyberpunk, or you like Dune stuff. Like, I'm open to. I mean, Tarek wants to do some Dune stuff. Tarek wants to do some
Dune. Is really
stuff.
good. I like Dune.
He wants it.
It's just me. Oh, keep an eye out for our Pathfinder game that's coming soon, Outlaws of Alkenstar. We're going to be doing that on live streams.
You're going to be running that
soon. I'm going to be running that. And yeah, come join us. Join the Patreon. Check us out on Discord. Come join the Discord. Be a part of the conversation. Yeah.
From Tarek and myself, my name is Corey. Go roll some dice.